I actually met Turi in 1983 when I came back from my sabbatical. And I heard that somebody was working on C4 photosynthesis. I said, WTF. C4 photosynthesis belongs in biology, not in geology. Who is this guy trampling on our territory? Now I was doing a lot of C4 photosynthesis, and I came over in an angry mood, and I walked away as happy as I could be because I knew I had just found a new color. So that only goes to prove you don't judge a book by the cover, right? Especially if you're into bookbinding. So two people wanted to be here, they couldn't be here. First is Nina here, and the second is Elise, one from Switzerland, the other from Australia. They want to send their regards. There are two other people that I wish could be here, that should be here, because they played a great role in your career and they thought the world of you. And those are, of course, Frank Brown and Jane Chapman. My talk is a timeline. And time zero is the day I met Turi. Now, you might imagine what AC stands for, and you might imagine what AI stands for. And for you young people today, not everything is AI, artificial intelligence. But for me, it's anti-Zerlin, which is the Dark Ages, and then Aetas Illuminicus, the Age of Enlightenment. And that is 1983. So I meet Turi. It's very profound. Let me tell you how stable isotope applications came to be. Really? Well, I knew we could do C3 and C4. He says it's all about ice. Ice. I said to myself, another WTF. What is this guy talking about? I'm thinking about ice cubes and just water. It doesn't make any sense. And then I realized that ice was the isotope Serling event. And it was an event that began to grow in the early 80s, and it emerged in the mid 80s. And it's an event like the Big Bang. Okay? Because I discovered that I don't like the name ice. I actually prefer IC. And then after you've seen the event, it now becomes, oh, I see. So, time zero, ice does not melt. Rather, it's like the Big Bang. It's there formulating, and it bursts out onto the horizon. With lots of these different amorphous structures, these, like clouds that are trying to condense, and some of them condense early and some of them condense later. You know these events because you've seen some of them. You've seen this new field come up in animal physiology. Oh, how about in ecology? Oh, and how about paleoecology? And I like acronyms. So Turi says, well, how about if I'm going to study hair, it'll be the history of animals through isotope ratios. Clever guy. So we talked about C4 expansion. But did you also know he was engaged in how we relate C4 to climate? And that hypothesis was immediately accepted, and then everybody wanted to attack it. And the more they attacked it, the more solid it became. So Turi's ahead of his time. And then, of course, he got interested in forensics, but it had to be isoforensics. So these are a number of things that have emerged. There are clouds still condensing. He is still developing new ideas. He and I are bonded. We're water molecules that stick next to each other. And as you might imagine, looking at us side by side, I'm heavy water. He's light water. So we're closely associated with the fact. In fact, we are so closely associated that whenever you see a picture of the two of us, we're bonded together. Now, I remember from chemistry that when you have two water molecules bonded together, it's by a hydrogen bond. But no, for Turi and I, it's a collaborative bond. That collaborative bond has been strong. 71 publications, And they've garnered 12,000 citations alone. All did it with one grant. Now, for any chair out here, or for any dean who's sitting out there, I want to tell you, you've got a pretty damn good bang for your buck if you get 71 papers and 12,000 citations on one grant. Oh, and by the way, unfortunately, Terry and I have never been in the field together. But I'll tell you about what it's like being with Terry in the field. So we're held together by this collaborative bond, but we're really actually held together by covalent bonds. And so here's Terry with Mahala and Edna with me. Edna wanted to be here, but today is her mother's 99th birthday, and so she sends her regards. Now, when we had this explosion of ice, you have to realize it came with a new math. And the new math is called Timmy. And it emerges directly from ice. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of Terry math. Now, T plus G results in A to the P. G plus C plus N results in I to the F, and A plus S, and A plus S goes to K. Now, so for those of you that don't know this because you're not scientists, let me tell you, you put a geologist together and creativity, of which we've heard a lot about, and all of a sudden you have animal physiology. Animal ecology, as you'd expect that they would be. Then you put a geologist together, now with creativity and a need, and you create forensics. But for Terry, who's part of that founding company, it had to be ISO forensics. And then, of course, if you place any 2 statisticians together in the same room to explore the data set, you will get confusion. So, A to the K and A to the K is A to the C is K. So let me tell you how this math works out. A geologist, curiosity, goes to animal physiology. He gets this idea. Terry's going to go to the field, and he's going to collect isotopes on his hair that are going to reflect his diet. So here's Terry going to the field. He's got samples beforehand, but can I touch my beard? Hell no. You don't get to touch my beard if you want to look at growth, so we can just look at these little shavings. So he goes to the field and collects these shavings. So he goes from Salt Lake City to Mongolia, at Ulaanbaatar, and he goes to the field and comes back. Now, I don't want to say that Terry's an exciting guy, but he goes to the field, and as you can see, he eats at 2 restaurants. Maybe he's a little afraid of the diet, but it has the same value. He goes to the field, and you see that the values stay the same. He's eating the same food, but there are a couple of few spikes where it goes up. Terry had corn chips hidden in his bag. And towards the end of the field trip, he said, I gotta have something. So he goes back to Ulaanbaatar, and he goes to the 2 same restaurants. And now I understand everything. Terry and I get together once a week for coffee. Every single week, we go to Kachina. Why Kachina? Well, I realize he doesn't like to change. But he comes back, and his diet changes. So at this point, Terry goes home, thinks about it for a lot, thinks a lot about it, and out of this emerges the field of animal physiology. He has worked it all out. And I said to Terry, okay, he said, Jim, I'm going to present these results at the bottom of the students. And I said, Terry, wait a second. You're lecturing at 8 o'clock in the morning. Kids are barely waking up. Caffeine is not kicked in. Don't do it. He says, but I'll go lately. So his first equation, all of a sudden I'm learning about diffusion flux, advection flux, primary reaction, second order reaction. And my head is spinning. Then he goes on to the next slide. Reaction progress. Then he goes to the third equation. Now we're looking at pool sizes. And you can just see the look in students' faces. And then he goes through these partial differential equations. And after he spent 10 minutes on it, he said, you know, this probably aren't that important. So at this point, and this is a slide from Terry's presentation, he stops and says, Are there any questions? There were no questions. So since there were no questions, Turry moves on. And he starts to talk about another test of that model, which was horses. And as soon as you say horses, bingo, students are all of a sudden awake, and he begins to tell them about this experiment he did. Now, I don't know how this got past the IRB. Because what Turry did was he took a horse, and that horse ate the same diet for 6 months. Then he switched to a C4, switched it back. So for 2.5 years of this animal's life, he only had 2 different diets. Now you know why we go back to Katina every day. So he worked it out, and he said, here's the take-home message, guys. There's actually 3 pools, because what you're looking at in the open circles are the data, and the black line is my model. And in the model, there's a pool that turns over about 0.9. That's what I ate today. But there's another pool that turns over in about 3 days. Oh, that's the turnover of amino acids in my blood. And then there's a pool that turns over at 142 days. And I think that must be the turnover rate of actin and myosin in muscles. This model has been applied, works all the time. So one year we had this Belgian sitting in class. His name was Hercules, but he went by the name of Hercule Poirot. And he decided that he might be able to take the isotopes and model it after a famous TV show that he wanted to rename, CSI, and he would solve crime. Oh no! Inspector Serling has there. And he said, not only have a model, but I'm going to verify my model by sending my kids out on a field trip. So what does he do? He sends Claire and Dylan out. And how old were you, Dylan? 19. So barely old enough to do an adventure like this. They go on this adventure, and Gabe Bowen with his modeling has planned out exactly all the sites that they have to do. And so how are you going to collect hair samples without an IRB, which is government bureaucracy? So what he says is, wait a second. I'm going to go to a barber shop, and I'm going to wait till after somebody's had a haircut, and wait until the guy starts to sweep things together, and we're just going to pick up the trash. Because you don't need a permit to pick up trash. And the result was, he was able to validate an important model. And in isoforensics, the first case involved a woman by the name of Saltaire Sally. Now, Saltaire Sally was named so because she was found in a shallow grave out near Saltaire in the west end of the valley. There was a bag of bones, a necklace, and hair. And when isoforensics got involved, the thought was that she was a truck stop prostitute, and it seemed to kill her. So Turley puts things together, samples the hair, and can ask the following questions. Was she a resident of Salt Lake? Had she traveled? Where had she traveled? And he gets all these isotope results, and what do? He puts it into his model, and he says, by the way, the data are consistent, this is region 1, that when she died, she was a resident of Salt Lake. But she had spent the previous, probably summer, up in northwestern Wyoming. Maybe she worked at, one of the national parks. And the year before that, she had traveled to some other region, region 4. So that didn't solve the problem. But what it did was provide key information to go to law enforcement and say, did you have a person missing at this time? Did you have a person missing at that time? And so forth. We now know that the woman was Nicole Coles. And she had visited her mother 18 months before her mother couldn't get in contact with her. So, shortly after her mother last contacted her, she was apparently buried, and then lost. Her husband's in prison, and he ain't talking. So we don't know rest of the story. My favorite though is ISACamp. This is a lot of fun together here. I think we changed the community. And it's another timid equation. If you are really smart, if you have a machine, and if you can simply wave your hand over a sample and determine its isotope ratio, you qualify as an isotope, which is of course I to the P. When you come into the class, you're not very smart, you're an isotope. And you mix that with ISACamp, and what do you get out of it? You get exhausted isotope professors, and you discover that the students have been transitioned from isotopes to isotopeteers. And eventually they'll graduate and become a sorcerer. And a sorcerer is somebody who actually owns his own machine, but needs a machine to tell him what the isotope ratio value is. Well, we were smart in thinking about the idea of who to bring together. We couldn't do diddly squat in terms of management and organization and details and all the stuff that really makes a meeting a success. And so there were two people that contributed here, Lori Meekum and Ming Lee in the back. It was incredible. It's a wonderful run. You've seen this picture already. We started in the mid-1990s and we continued until COVID, and then the course transitioned over to the University of New Mexico. But in those 23 years or so, we had a lot of fun.